Okay, welcome. This is gonna be awkward and probably full of mistakes and stuff as I iron out all the kinks, but this is episode number 1 of the MFile Change Your Music, Change Your Life podcast. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I basically just needed to kind of just start doing it. Musicians would know this as well as anybody who tries to put together a project. You are always going to find reasons to not start and try and perfect things and find out how to do this next thing and this other thing, and you just end up procrastinating into a big stinky circle and never getting anything done. So what is MFile? Basically, I want to start a lot of things, a community for learning music theory, songwriting. I want to push people beyond their comfort zone and find out more things about themselves through their music. I've had a lot of experiences with that over my near 20 years of playing music. And yeah, so the point of this podcast is basically going to be me sharing stories of myself and people I know. Maybe eventually I'll be able to get some friends talking about their experiences as well, and just the trials and tribulations of trying to write music and be a songwriter. And I think a big thing that's going to evolve more as a part of this is that I want to kind of take you guys on a journey with me as I start writing music again. I've been on a bit of a hiatus. We had a baby. He's now a year old. Things are getting a little easier to handle with him around the house, and basically I just miss it. Music has been a big part of my life, and songwriting has been a big part of my life. And so I kind of want to take people along that journey with me as I get, back into the pool, so to speak. And kind of as a way of accountability as well, but also to bring people in on the process. We might have some episodes that'll just be me working on stuff, or maybe episodes where I go over some recordings of what I've been doing. And my goal is to have things up and running in a smooth way so that I can kind of try and write a song at least like one a week. And so we can have that as a goal where like at least one episode a week is going to be talking about the new song and showing it off and going over maybe obstacles that I encountered or techniques that I used, whatever. But yeah, so episode 1, obviously you gotta have an origin story. So this will just be me waxing poetic about my very, very interesting past. So yeah, basically I always wanted to play guitar. I think that's like a lot of people's boyhood dream, is just like be that big rock star, and you see movies or music videos or whatever, and everybody loves the guitar player, right? So I was a huge Beatles fan from a young age. I used to watch their movie Help, like on a near religious basis from like the age of 4. And I always wanted to just play guitar. I started learning when I was in high school. It was a little later. I would sneak my sister's guitar, which I wasn't allowed to touch, and try and just pick it up and see what I could do and make noise on it. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I stuck with it, and I really wanted to try and just make music. Music was always a big part of my life, and I always saw myself as being a musician. So eventually I started playing more, and I started moving into playing in bands, playing with people very quickly, like as soon as I could. Because this is something that I wanted for years and years and years and years. I would even, don't tell my mom, but I used to skip class a lot in high school to go and play guitar with my friend Matt. and we would just go and sit. Sometimes we'd sit in our buddy's bed of his pickup truck in the parking lot, or there was a place where all the stoners used to hang out in the park across the street in Germain Park under this huge evergreen tree, and we would just play and jam and entertain people, and it was really, really rewarding. I think that was an important part of my musical development, just because there was the immediate gratification of playing. It wasn't so much hiding. I know a lot of people kind of get stuck in that, where they're in the woodshed forever because they're scared to play in front of people. And so I was trying to do that as soon as possible and get that immediate feedback, and get that feeling of how good it is to perform for people and to affect people with my music. So I went to college. It was one of those things where you just kind of do what's expected of you. You take that next step because it's just what you're supposed to do, what everybody's doing, so you naturally have to do it too. I wanted to do the music industry arts program at Fanshawe, but I had to get into a general arts and science first. Now, if you're not aware, it's basically paying a college to teach you a bunch of high school courses. So I was really, really bored. I wasn't challenged. I had a teacher in one of my literature classes hand back my essay exam, and I got like an A++ on it, and she held me back after class and was just like, "Why are you here?" Like you don't belong here. Maybe you should do something more along those lines. And we had a lot of drama with crazy roommates and gangs and drugs and stuff in the townhouse complex that we were staying. It just got so nuts there. So I just kind of washed out after a semester. I was not going to class. I was failing out because I was just missing assignments, and I just didn't care. I was just playing my guitar all the time. I would get out of bed at like 12 and be like, "Oh, I didn't answer my alarm 16 times and I missed class," and I just play music. And so I failed out of college, and I came home and I was broke and I was feeling pretty stuck. I wanted to start a band. I still had those rock star dreams. I was only like 19 years old, and it just was like a foregone conclusion that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get up on stage, and I wanted to make records. I wanted to make money with my music. I wanted to play in front of people. A big problem was that I came home to Sarnia, my hometown, and there's not a whole lot of people to play with. I had no money to record anything, obviously. That's a very expensive endeavor. And I didn't have a whole lot of experience. I wouldn't really know that I would consider myself a professional musician at that point. I had done paying gigs and stuff, but it was mostly punk rock shows and just getting really loud and messy and obnoxious. And I don't know that would really translate in a professional setting. Not to say that it's not professional, it's its own kind of show. But getting to that next step of like, now I'm playing with adults and playing bar gigs for money and learning covers and stuff, that was just seemed a bit further down the road, really. But there was just a lot that was getting in my way in terms of making those next steps and where I wanted to go. I felt like I was trapped, and as a musician, stop me if you've heard this one a million times before, but it's really easy to get stuck, and you feel like you've got all this stuff inside of you that you want to get out, and you can't. So coming home and like having to tell people I failed out of school was really tough because there was a lot of expectations on me. I don't like the term, but I was like a former gifted child, basically, going to enrichment programs, and we had people from the school board, I think, that would come and test us like 2 or 3 times a year, me and my sister, and give us like exams and just see how we were progressing and stuff. And but you start to kind of move away from what people expect of you in school. So I started losing interest in high school. I didn't really want to do assignments and tests and stuff like that. I wanted to play music, and I felt like suddenly I was like no longer special. If that makes any sense. Everyone just kind of expected a lot from me, all my teachers, my parents, and family, and everyone's just like, oh, Dan's gonna go to university and he's gonna do this, he's gonna get a degree, and just I suddenly realized that all these things I had planned were planned for me, and I didn't want to do it, but I also didn't want to let everybody down. I wanted to impress my parents and my family. I mean, 19, you're still kind of a kid. You're technically on paper, you're an adult, but anybody who's 19 can tell you you're still a fucking kid, you know. But I did. I wanted to impress my parents. My mom did everything to keep a roof over our heads, and she was kind of just like, whatever you want to do, I'll support you, and I love you. And I really wanted to make her proud for how hard that she worked to make sure that there was food on the table, and that I was able to succeed and try and go to college. And of course, I failed out, so that sucked. My dad was kind of in and out of my life. Like, he was around. My parents split up when I was like in grade 8, and he would come and go, and it kind of seemed like we didn't exactly have a lot in common. He was very much like a gruff dude who would work on motorcycles and cars, and he would tinker in the garage, and he would do stuff with his hands and build things. And I didn't share a lot of those interests. I felt like growing up, maybe he just kind of didn't. We didn't get each other. I wanted to do other things, and he was trying to show me these things are important, and they are. Like, I'm so thankful for the things that he did show me, but I feel like there was like a lot of disconnect growing up. And so, yeah, like, I guess deep down there was a desire for me to show him that I could be good at music, and I could learn these songs that he liked. We were a very musical home, not in the sense of playing a lot of instruments, but there was always music playing. The radio was always on, oldies and classic rock and stuff like that. So I got a really good education in that way. But I just kind of felt like maybe music would be a way that I could connect with my dad in a way that maybe we were unable to before. But yeah, like that was a really tough time having to come home. I got really depressed. Basically, I had this whole life that was set out for me, and I felt like my body just rejected it, and so suddenly everything was off the table, and I had no roadmap. I had no idea where to go, except I just knew that I wanted to play music, and I wanted to make music. So in doing that, I mean, I had been writing songs and kind of copying songs and trying with different formulas and stuff, and it just kind of got to a point where every song that I was writing started sounding the same. Every solo and riff was using the same kind of patterns, and every song was just had the same flavor. And you get excited when you write your first song, and you just maybe don't move forward and get as good as expressing yourself, or you're really, you start to look back and you realize you're only expressing like two things: loud and minor, maybe blues scale. Good coffee they got in Twin Peaks here. Yeah, so it was just a lot of the same. And I started feeling really stagnant, even with my music. Like, my music was the one thing that kind of got me through a lot of bullshit in my life up until that point. So to have that happen, I just kind of felt like it was a masquerade almost, Like, I felt like I was good enough to fool people, but I wasn't satisfied with where I was with music. Um, so basically, I just started learning more, and I started to see how much I actually didn't know about how to play my instrument. The more time I was spending on it and starting to really see what I didn't know, I wasn't nearly as knowledgeable as I thought I was with my music. Guitar is an easy trap because the patterns are set out in, or the way the instrument is built. You can pick up patterns, you can pick up shapes really easily without figuring out anything about them. You just know that they're there and they work. And so that gets you so far. It works until it doesn't. And then you start hitting that wall, you plateau, and then you look around and you see there's a much bigger world out there that you don't understand. My musical tastes were expanding a little bit. I remember listening to Miles Davis. It was like their Autumn Leaves, in jazz school. That's like, so Autumn Leaves. It's like one of the first songs you're supposed to learn, kind of thing. But to come upon that at that time in my life and really have it affect me in that way, it's this interesting sound and this style of music that I knew nothing about. I was listening to it and I was like, well, jazz is important and jazz is really difficult and top musicians play jazz. So I want to try and figure it out. And I couldn't. And that was a huge kind of like light bulb moment for me because I could figure out pretty much anything before that. So it was the first time that I really hit a challenge that I couldn't easily overcome on my own. Another important album was Friday Night in San Francisco. If you don't know about it as a guitar player, you probably should. Paco de Lucia, John McLaughlin, and Al Di Meola, three of arguably the best, shredding guitar players at the time. And it's all three guys acoustic and they're playing together and it's just them. Yeah, my friend showed me the song Mediterranean Sundance, and that was another moment where it was like, I will never be the same after this. I've never heard guitar playing quite like this, and it's so clean and fast, and the chords, there's just chords everywhere. I don't know what they're playing. Another really important album at that time that, blew my head open was Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds live at Luther College. Again, just two guys, acoustic guitars. The music was so beautiful, but the style of playing, I couldn't get over how good it was. It was the way that they use the guitar is like how somebody plays a piano. A lot of the time it's like you're chunking out riffs on the guitar, or you're just smashing power chords, or you're doing your strumming and you just got your basic open chords that that you can just pick up and go. This was a lot different. There like I got the CD and it blew me away, so I went and bought one of the books that was just all the music and all the tab written out, and I was like, I'm gonna learn this. And I started putting these things together and looking at the chords, I was like, what? Like, there's like stretching, like weird stuff like this. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this. I didn't know you could play chords like this. I didn't know these existed. So that was a huge, huge thing to start taking that kind of stuff and realizing that I could, throw down a bunch of weird shapes and kind of see how the guitar moved, moving the notes within the chords in a much different way, and seeing like all the lines on the fretboard really clearly for the first time. It was just, my eyes fell out of my head when I started looking at this stuff, because I was like, you can do that? so yeah, I really started seeing the connection between chords and scales and the music theory I'd been learning in high school, and everything was connected. You know, it's like you start pulling at that thread, and you find out a little more and a little more, and then this makes more sense, and this makes more sense, and so yeah, so I started taking all of this and being able to come back to learning music, but looking at it with a different lens. I started trying to figure out how all this music that I loved and had been playing for years, how it worked, so that I could better try and capture the feeling. You know, it's one thing to just say, "Oh, I like Led Zeppelin," and then you just basically rip off some riffs and put them in a different order, and now you have a song like Led Zeppelin. But to actually look at what's happening, what notes are being played over what chords that are, you know, all these instruments are coming together. All these instruments come together to make a much bigger chord or sound or whatever, and then how that moves to the next one is a big deal. And so I started, as that made more sense to me, and as I got more tools, the toolkit, I was able to kind of go and start taking songs that I loved apart and seeing, okay, so this sound is happening when this type of chord change happens, and you're using these notes moving to these notes, and so I was more set on replicating the feeling rather than replicating just taking the chords and being like, yeah, this is a song that I wrote, but you know, I just like this song, so I'm just gonna take it and whatever. And that's an important step in learning how to write music, obviously, but that next step that separates you from like a student to someone who's coming into their own is definitely when you get to that point and you start seeing the connections and how things work. So once that started happening, I got really hungry. Um, I don't know. I tend to have a really intense uh, thirst for knowledge. When something it really interests me, I'm gonna eat the whole pizza, even after I feel like my stomach's gonna explode. You know, it's just like I need to fill my head with knowledge, and I need to know what's going on, and I want to just be the authority on this, and I want to be able to talk to people about it. So I decided after a really good conversation with my grandpa, who's no longer with us. He's been gone a few years, but he came over to fix my mom's sink one day, and he specifically asked me to help him, which, like, you know, I wasn't good with tools or anything. I think he just knew that I was upset and I was feeling stuck, and he just wanted to talk to me. Kind of pulled it out that what I really loved was playing music. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it and go to school, but he kind of convinced me to do it. So I'll always be thankful for that, because he was basically like, it doesn't matter if it's not, you know, not instantly transferable or whatever. It's going to change you as a person because it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you love and it excites you. So go chase it. So I decided, like, I'm going to take this next year to study, practice, and audition for music school. Something that seemed so far away, but I set that goal and I was going to do it. So I decided I'm going to write music, I'm going to record, I'm going to get better at improvising. I just needed to promise myself to, like, keep progressing and keep learning and moving forward with music. You know, so eventually getting into school and finally getting there, like, it seems so far away, but, you know, making that progress and getting into school and thinking like, okay, I'm here. Once you get there, you don't think about like the next peak that you have to climb, which is just like surviving in music school. It was insanely hard. just the amount of workload and adjusting to a different way of looking at music. Like when I said I was only, starting to pull at the thread, like I barely scratched the surface at an understanding. And you have to be so good just to get into music school, and then you get there and there's a good chance you're gonna be drowning. Which, like, I struggled to keep my head above water with the amount of information that was getting tossed at me. Um, Another tough thing was just attitudes. I was a rock, like pure just noise and ripped jeans and Led Zeppelin shirt and long hair kind of person, and some students and teachers were like jazz purists. And plain and simple, like, you know, some people didn't want you there. Uh, they could be hard on people that were struggling and didn't already have a background in jazz. And it was this kind of weird, like, oh, you don't know how to play changes, you don't know how to do this. Oh, like you're such a plebe. And it's like, I came here to learn. I came here because I was excited and I wanted to get better. And so that was incredibly difficult. Like I couldn't always see the connections between things right away. It'd just be this weird abstract information about music that I had never even thought about, didn't know how to use yet. And so I started losing my motivation. It was hard to justify doing this work when it made me feel kind of crappy about myself in a lot of ways. I almost quit a few times. I did end up taking a year off, but I decided like I was gonna, after the prep program, try for the rest of the 3 years and audition again, and I got in, and I smashed it. I studied really hard. I practiced. I wrote crazy music. I achieved so much by sticking with it. I could have very easily been comfortable with where I was. Like like I said, I was good enough to fool people. And even getting into school the first time, I would have been good enough to fool people, but I still wasn't satisfied. And I wanted to hold myself to a higher standard of what I could do. If I felt unsatisfied and I was already impressing some people, well, then imagine what I'd be able to pull out of myself if I went and dug and found some things that I maybe didn't even know was there to begin with. So, completing school, getting really good grades, making all kinds of connections, both like with the people I was learning with and with teachers. You know, that's such a good thing with like getting gigs and getting the connections and networking and everything. Like meeting all the people that I was going to be in bands with. I was in several bands and then played in several other groups and filling in and just getting to play with so many different kinds of people it's always a learning experience. But yeah, being able to be in a band that was doing like really successfully for a little while, we got in the studio, we put out an album, we had Alan Cross put us on his list for the new music for the week, which was a big boost in the arm. I think we were second to U2 that week. So it's like, whatever. Like, I guess this is okay, but it's no Joshua Tree, what I'm saying. I'm sure it was fine, U2. But, Alice Cooper shared our music video on Facebook, which was awesome, because it's like, Alice Cooper, he knows our band exists, and he shared our video and thought the song was cool. We got to open for a bunch of really cool bands that we really liked and respected. We got to open for Shad. We got to open for Bright Light Social Hour. They're sweethearts from Austin, Texas, and it's like psychedelic power funk stuff. It's amazing. Five Alarm Funk, another Canadian band out from out west. Incredible, very rhythm drum driven. Please check them out as well. Marbin, it's like I don't even psychedelic gypsy jazz power funk rock. We played with a lot of really interesting bands. After Funk, more Sweethearts out of Toronto. Most of them are based out of Toronto. Check them out as well. And we got to take a headlining spot at the Come Together Festival, which is a huge like hippie festival that's held in a on a huge property that's like got a cowboy ghost town. So like you have all your tents set up, and then you go into town, and you walk down the street. And it's all like wooden buildings, and the main building is the saloon where everybody plays at night. And you push open like batwing doors, and it's like you look like you could order a sarsaparilla. And there's like cattle skulls everywhere. And I think we took the stage at like 3 in the morning or something. It was probably one of the best sets that I've ever been a part of. It was so much fun and just so much energy. It was so crazy. Yeah, we also got to do a cooperative gig with the Hamilton Philharmonic Orchestra with their indie series. We got to play some like psyched out versions of some classical tunes, and then they did arrangements of some of our songs from our album. And again, with the Hamilton Philharmonic, because of connections that I got through music school, I got to do a giant Beatles gig with them. One of my former professors and mentors put together a massive thing. So I got to be one of the singers singing Beatles songs with a 100-piece orchestra and a wicked backing band. And I just had all these amazing opportunities because I pushed myself and I wanted to see what I could do with my music and where it, could take me. I never imagined I would be able to do any of those things when I started. Imagine if I didn't listen to my grandpa and just stayed and was just like, oh, like I play music, but I'm depressed and I sleep in my mom's basement all the time. Instead, like, he told me to chase that feeling, that passion, to explore it, to get excited about something, and music did that for me. And it unlocked so much of so much of my life, like it was incredible, all the things that have happened. So yeah, my musical tastes have expanded so much. I've been exposed to so much music, and it's kind of changed how I write and how I interact with other musicians. I've gained so much knowledge over the past, I guess, 13, 14 years that I've been on that journey since I came to Hamilton and went to music school. But I gained a huge respect for what I'm yet to learn and what I'm yet to understand about music. When I first started really, again, pulling that thread and seeing like, I don't think I have the whole story here. I feel like I'm kind of stuck, but I don't know where to go. And then being able to kind of accept how much I don't know and respect the fact that I don't know it yet. It's too easy to get upset about something when you're like, I don't know it, I don't understand it, it makes me feel dumb. You have to throw that away because that's just going to stop you from transforming. Really. Like that. Hold on. Okay. Change your music, change your life. It's not just, something that some horse girl would paint on her bathroom wall to make you feel inspired. That's a real statement. That's why I decided to go with that as the title of this podcast. Change your music, change your life. If you can just fundamentally explore where music can take you, it just opens up so many doors and so many possibilities, and not just in like meeting people and being in a band and everything, but it changes who you are fundamentally as a person. So through all of this, uh, you know, as excited as all of these things made me, as I would learn new things and make new connections and be able to have these experiences because of music, I just, you know, the desire to share all of this stuff that I've learned has also, you know, gone through the roof. I want to tell you what I've learned. I want to tell you about stuff that I'm yet to learn, that I want to learn about, that I'm starting to learn about. I want to give that to as many people as possible. And I want people to share that same experience as I have. I want to create a wave of just well written music made by people who maybe think that they don't have it in them. I think one of the saddest things that I can think of is the idea that a song can come into your head and you hear it and it's so beautiful and so moving, and then it's gone. You know, think about how many songs have changed you or your life or been that like perfect moment, and imagine how many songs that didn't get a chance to exist could have been those songs. You know what I mean? Like, how many people out there have that music in their head, but they don't have the tools to express it? So I want to change that. That's one of the main reasons why I started this whole project. The podcast is going to be part of it. There's going to be courses that we can get into. There's going to be, you know, these videos, there's blogs, there's lessons. And let's just talk about transforming your music. I think that's a huge thing. And of course, I intend to put my money where my mouth is and take you on this journey of songwriting and creating with me. I've been planning for a long time and not doing. So I kind of feel like this is that moment where if I'm going to speak it, I need to be doing it as well. So it's going to keep me accountable, it's going to keep me playing music, and it's going to remind me about more things that I have inside of me that I want to share with people. So I hope everybody's excited. I know I've been rambling for a while, but I just kind of want everybody to get to know where I'm coming from. There's going to be a lot of stories. I have a lot of stories about how music has affected me or changed me or whatever, and I know that you guys out there have too. So, you know, let's put all these experiences together and let's start making some really good music. So that wraps up the self-indulgent, poetic remembering portion of today's show. But at the end, I'd kind of like to just go through my vinyl collection and pick one out and just kind of talk about it really quick. And, you know, if you've heard it, if you know it, then it's like, yeah, that's a good one. And if you don't know it, then it's something that you absolutely should go and check out, like at your soonest possible convenience. So naturally, the first one I had to pick, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, sorry, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. This, I mean, that right there. This is just, it's too perfect. Like, what can you even say? They took a concept of just, he's this man from outer space, or it's like the apocalypse, the earth is dying, and he's becoming a rock star, and there's all this crazy thing. It's like semi-autobiographical, but he's also an alien. This is a really interesting period for Bowie because he was able to truly step into himself. I know we have talked a lot today about transformation, and we will continue to talk about transformation through music. But before this, he was getting into this psych folk rock kind of sound. He was getting to this. You could hear, like, I think the one before this is Man Who Sold the World. But this one he got to and really embraced this new sound and this really excellent kind of form of songwriting that is, I don't know, there's the rock and roll elements, but there's also lots of symphonic elements, lots of strings, like amazing production on this, and the songs are not how you would think they would go. He does have jazz training as a musician. Bowie played the saxophone for years. He actually plays the saxophone on this album, and I didn't know that for the longest time. I was like, this sax player is really good. Turns out it's Bowie. So yeah, this was just an album that I knew a couple songs off it and figured I knew what it was all about. And the first time that I heard it, I kind of had to stop and just stand there and take the whole thing in. It is an experience, and it's definitely one that, best listened to on vinyl with headphones, volume all the way up. It actually even says, right, get that, to be played at maximum volume. Don't blow your ears out or anything, but it is something that you definitely should listen. So yes, today's album of the day is David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. So that's the end of episode 1 of MFile. Change your music, change your life. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next one, and be sure to follow all of our socials and check out all the links we've got posted below. I mean, not on the video. I gotta put all that in there yet, but yeah, come say hi, join the community, see what's going on. The biggest thing that MFile is hopefully going to do is show you that you're not the only one that's maybe struggling or learning, and you need to shed that fear that's keeping you from making the music. Like the tagline says for this company, create the music that you hear in your head. So we'll see you next time, and we'll talk about some more interesting stuff, and hopefully we'll see you again. Take care.